Some of the stuff we're talking about here is probably going to seem like pretty introductory level stuff to people that are fairly experienced developers. We'll get into some crazier stuff at the end, but for the most part, this is kind of just to get people, I don't know, thinking about development more on the admin side of things as opposed to the regular front-end user side of things. So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of functions and stuff that's kind of somewhat basic until we get towards the end. There'll be a little more stuff, and then hopefully I don't fly through these too fast. If I do go a little too fast, we're just going to do some on-the-fly plugin development, and I'll kind of demo a little bit of what we talked about. So I'm going to talk about like a lot of different stuff, like a lot of different functions and a lot of different like little APIs and stuff. And so we're not really going to dive super deep into any of them. It's going to be fairly like overview, and I'll just leave it up to you guys to pick out which pieces you don't know a lot about and go and learn more about them on your own. And then obviously we have the thing tomorrow. I'll be at that, so if anybody actually wants hands-on education on any one specific thing I'm talking about, we can start like a little group tomorrow or whatever during the open session and dive into whatever you guys want. I'll take questions at the end, and make sure you guys' phones are all silenced and whatnot, so you're not that guy or gal. And yeah, that's about it. Let's go ahead and let's get started, I guess. So 10 points to whoever knows who that guy is. Yes, 10 points. Awesome. Yeah, so basically, I mean, for anybody who isn't already aware, you guys probably are already aware. That's why you develop in WordPress to begin with. But we have a lot of responsibility as developers, more so as years go on, because WordPress is becoming such a popular development platform for websites in general. And if you look at those stats there, the trend is looking like, I mean, most of the internet in probably about another 8 or 9 years is going to be on WordPress, with the exception of like, big, huge companies that need a fully, custom developed website on their own custom platform or something. So with that in mind, I think we have to really like think about what our responsibility is as developers. And we really have a responsibility not just to crank out like websites for people or whatever, but to make sure that the content matches like what those sites look like. I think a lot of people get really caught up in making websites look pretty, and not really so much like how is this client going to add content, how much content are they going to add, what value is their website adding to the internet as a whole. And so that's kind of what this talk is about, is trying to encourage, in my situation, I'm a freelance developer. So a lot of the times I'm getting XYZ restaurant or XYZ company client comes to me, hey, I want a website built. And you build me a website, I build the website, I hand it off to them, and then they just take care of it from there. It's their responsibility. So, with that, and that's why people use WordPress, because it's, whatever. That's the whole appeal, is they can add whatever content they want without having to hire people like me who are super expensive to do it for them. So I think we owe it to the internet to make it as easy as possible for those people to add quality content to their website. So that's kind of that part. Yeah, content is king. I kind of just went over this. I mean, really, it just comes down to two things for every WordPress website: the users and the admins. So which one is really more important? I mean, a lot of people talk about UX and how important user experience is or whatever to a website, and that is important. I'm not trying to say it's not by any means, but I will say that it may be more important for the admin to have a better experience with their WordPress site, because they're the ones that are actually adding the content to the website. So way too many times, I hand off my website to a client, even though a lot of the hours I allocate to their quote is for sitting down with them and actually showing them how to use it. So we'll have a little meeting, 2 or 3 hours, where I show them, okay, here's this thing, here's that thing, whatever. Here's how you add content. Here's where you edit this thing. Here's where you edit that thing. But a lot of times, okay, they're sitting there, okay, great, whatever, they're taking notes, and they don't mess with it for 3, 4, 5 months. 6 months later, they're like, oh, I need to change this thing on my website. I don't remember anything Rob told me. As a matter of fact, I don't even have his number anymore. So they sit down at their computer like, okay, I'm going to go change this on my website. And, well, that's kind of what they're feeling like. WordPress, I think it's important for us, especially as developers who work in it all the time. It's important for us to like step back and look at it from a regular Joe Schmo's perspective and say like, okay, I know WordPress, and I feel like it's pretty easy. Most people use Facebook nowadays or whatever. They can log on to some website and edit some content and add some content or whatever. But WordPress doesn't look like Facebook, and it doesn't look like Twitter, and it doesn't really look like anything else. So although it is a very well-designed platform, and that's why people use it, it still looks really foreign to a lot of people, especially business owners who are trying to like do this themselves, or maybe they hand that responsibility off to somebody that works for them who also doesn't know a lot about websites or whatever. You definitely don't want to leave them feeling like this. So basically just going to go through a bunch of tips to customize the admin experience a bit to make it so that when they do get on there later on or whatever, it's really, really easy for them to add the content that they originally wanted to be able to control in the first place. So I'm going to touch on some of these briefly, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know about this stuff. But these are just kind of like little handy things I like to tell my clients who seem like they're not very computer inclined, and who want to, they love the idea of WordPress, but maybe they just, I don't know. I have some clients that don't even use a laptop. They do everything from their phone. And so I always suggest things like Hootsuite, please just continue to add content to your website. It would be a shame if I spent, a month or 2 or 3 of my time to build you this website and then you never touch it again, even though it's on a fully functioning content management system. So, there's a WordPress app. I'm sure most of you know that, but again, these are just things to point out to your clients like, hey, know about this, know about that, use it if you like it. If you don't, whatever. But just make sure your clients or whoever you're building websites for, your boss or whoever, know that these things exist, because it may change the way they interact with that website. And then, of course, I don't know if you guys all know about this, but the exciting news about WordPress 4.7 finally opening up the core, the REST API, adding it to the core, and opening up those content endpoints. That's kind of a huge deal. That's almost a whole talk on its own. But why is it a huge deal? Well, this means that if you have a client, if I had a client that had a large amount of money that they wanted to throw at their website and they wanted a very unique or custom experience or way to interact with their WordPress site, I can essentially develop an app from scratch for them that did exactly what they needed it to do without them having to go and obviously install the WP REST API plugin that already exists. So yeah, that's kind of a worst case scenario for a developer, I think. But it's an option, so just something to think about. And hey, maybe they do have a lot of money, maybe they think that's a cool idea, and maybe that's more money for you as a developer. So hey, whatever, all right, so I'm going to start with the number one go-to thing that I use personally for my clients to make their experience better: custom post types. Best thing WordPress ever did, in my opinion. Completely underused, in my opinion. Now, obviously, there's a lot of themes that come with custom post types built in. I'm not particularly a fan of building the custom post types into the themes for my clients, mostly in the expectation that they're probably going to choose a different theme later on after I've built it and on their own because they can figure it out. And so I don't want the custom post types that I built specifically for them to be directly connected to the theme, I usually just build them into a plugin, and then that plugin could be activated, deactivated, and is completely unhinged from the theme itself, so it'll still be there if they change themes or not. I'm sure a lot of you already know about, show of hands, how many people actually build custom post types or use custom post types? That's what I figured, okay. So again, sorry, some of this is like probably not new to you guys, but just want to get you to think about these things. Like something like that can dramatically change how a client interacts with their WordPress site. You know, if they, I think I have some examples here after this. Okay, so in this case, this is a company I used to work for, and they do t-shirts for high schools, and it's basically template designs. So they design all these templates, and then customers go, choose which template they like. They say customize this, this, and that, change the school name to this, change the year to that, and that's what I want on my shirt, and then they order it. So how do we show all that? Well, I made a custom post type for designs. So every design is categorized in a custom post type, and it's really easy for them to go in and add new ones because they just log in, look for designs, add new, boom, boom, boom. Again, this is probably stuff some of you guys are already doing, but you'd be really surprised how many WordPress sites I've acquired from other developers, from a client that wanted their WordPress site kind of souped up a little bit, and they weren't doing stuff like this, and they were like, oh, my site's not that good, but it's in WordPress. Well, that's one of the reasons why. It's one of the first things I'll do is say, okay, well, you should probably have a custom post site for this, that, and the other. And they're like, oh my gosh, that makes my life so much easier. So here's another one I did for Tully's Kennels. They wanted a way to list all the puppies that they're selling. Don't judge me. I'm not like pro this business model, okay? I love animals, but work is work, so whatever. So they needed a way to do this. I could give them a way to do it, so I did it, and they can categorize them. They thought of some really cool ways that people, like, I don't know, look for puppies, like what kind of coat they have if they don't want them to shed very much or whatever. So the custom tags I added to the custom post type to make it easy to filter those. Projects, I mean, really it's all about being creative, I think. A lot of times I find myself being extremely creative on how I use custom post types, and so I think that can be a huge benefit. I think maybe the reason why a lot of people don't do it as much is because they aren't creative enough to figure out how it applies to this particular client. So, I mean, if somebody was breeding unicorns, you might want to have a unicorn custom post type. Just a thought, I don't know. Whatever, you know, just be really, really creative. These people right here, I had like 3 custom post types for them. We started doing all of our art proofs for the designs online. So then we had a custom post type for art proofs. Anytime when I started there, they were just sending out emails like, hey, here's a picture in an email of your art proof. And I was like, you need to encourage people to keep coming back to the website if you want to help your SEO out. So now we do all the art proofs online for them. They just click on a link and their art proof is on our website. All right, so next thing, shortcodes. I'm sure everybody here has developed a shortcode. This is probably nothing new to you guys. In case it is new, it's really easy to build a shortcode. Why build shortcodes? Well, I find myself a lot of times custom post types are overkill for certain scenarios, but you still want to be able to have some kind of control over the content as far as like what bits of data are in what divs so that you can style them properly and so that you have some kind of a template created. So whenever you're not having to query a whole bunch of them, if it's just like 2 or 3 that are going to be on the page at any given time, shortcodes come in really handy in that situation, and they're super quick and easy to program. I mean, I just keep snippets for all this stuff. I don't know what IDEs you guys use for the PHP Storm users. You know, you got your live templates or whatever, and so I keep, I keep basically like little chunks of code stored away so that if I ever need to do this stuff, I just drop in a chunk of code and I change all the variable properties, and then I have a shortcode that works, so it comes in pretty handy. So getting a little bit crazier, now obviously I would always try to do one of those last two things before I get to this point because this gets to be more work. But you do have a fully functioning and pretty decent database at your disposal. I think a lot of people don't really, maybe they think about this option, but they just don't do it. I don't know. But I'm never scared to create a custom table for a client if the situation, forces me to do it, whatever. Create a custom table for the client and then use that table. Metadata. Okay, so if you've never used any metadata in WordPress, you probably should be at some point, especially if you're doing custom stuff in the admin. A lot of time when I'm building custom menus for certain things that my client may want to change in the future, a lot of times it has to do with metadata. Now, obviously, every situation is different, so in some situations, I want to go the next way we're about to talk about, more simple situations. Metadata is a lot easier to manipulate. There's built-in functions, and I don't know. I always try to explore this route first before I go to the next route, which can get kind of crazy, but I consider it to be a little bit funner because I'm weird like that. Oh yeah, advanced custom fields. Anybody ever used that plugin? The hands are getting less. I feel better about that because now I'm talking about things that people can take away. So if you've never used advanced custom fields before, super sweet plugin, very easy to work with, will make your life 1,000 times easier for you as a developer to code a better experience for your admins, but also obviously easier for your admins to work with. There's so many different types of fields, and it just works beautifully in my opinion. Plus, if you're not scared to dive in some code, it's really easy to filter stuff and add dynamic data to the choices in the custom fields and stuff. So I'm not really going to, do you guys need me to spend more time on functions or anything? I feel like you guys already got a lot of this, right? Anybody, am I going too fast for anybody? Raise your hand if I'm like talking about stuff you have no idea what I'm talking about. Good, okay. Hoping since it's the developer track, we're good. All right, so if you've never created a custom menu before, it's kind of a good idea. It's really easy to do, stupid easy to do actually. So this is kind of the first step when I feel like, okay, I need to create the experience of a plugin that's actually, the admin's actually able to interact with, because not all plugins need to have interaction by the admin. So a lot of people might assume, especially people that are new to this type of stuff, they think like, oh, well, if I'm going to develop a plugin, it has to have like this whole admin backend side of it. Not necessarily. Like if I make a plugin that's just for a custom post type, it makes that part of it for me, and I don't have to do anything. Like it just shows the name of the custom post type in the backend, and that's it. So whenever you need to get a little deeper and create a custom admin area for your admin, these are obviously the functions you use. All right, so let's just throw around some ideas for why we would want custom admin page, submenu, menu. So one idea I really like is having a contact form specifically for the admin on there. And not every client is going to need this. I mean, it just depends on how comfortable you think this client is. Some clients are very tech savvy and they just don't know how to build this type of stuff. Others, they have no idea. They like weave baskets for a living or something. They barely use a computer. So having a contact form built right into the admin area can be really helpful, because a lot of the times when they have questions, they're in the admin area trying to do something. So it'll automatically send you an email. Live chat in the admin, maybe overkill. Something to consider though, I guess, depending on the person and how readily available you want to make yourself to your clients, I guess. Documentation. I personally just write little text files and build them into the plugin files so that if people can work their way around the FTP and look inside the file structure, they can find the documentation in there. However, some people don't want to even touch FTP or even look at the files at all. In that case, it's not a bad idea to build documentation right into the menu structure so that while they're in there, they can just look at the documentation right there on the spot. Plus, you can whatever, embed videos and all sorts of cool stuff like that. If you have a client that really needs a video walkthrough on how to use something, you would be able to create one and embed it in there. Again, extreme situations, but something to consider. Custom statistics. I don't know if, again, this is assuming you have a client that has a ton of money they're willing to throw at you to make an experience that is extremely customized to them. If they wanted to gather some custom statistics like how many people are actually finding the purple unicorn or the pink unicorn, whatever, you should probably build a way into it that it can gather those statistics and they can view them. I probably wouldn't get too crazy, but it would be nice that they could see some kind of basic data or numbers about that. Any suggestions? Anybody have an idea for anything else you would put in an admin menu? Or maybe something that you've put in there already in the past that you thought was pretty cool? Cricket sounds. All right, cool. I guess this is my talk, not yours. That makes sense. So, yeah, posting data to your database. So this is in the case that we create our own database table. Probably should have structured these slides a little bit better so that it made sense there. But yeah, there's basically two ways that I've seen this done in most plugins. I prefer one over the other, but we'll talk about both. So you got Ajax, and then you got the form submit post method, which I don't even think that's the real terminology, but that's what I'm using. So one way requires no page reload, the other way requires page reload. And then if you want to talk about what you're having to code, obviously there's like more languages you have to use to code Ajax over the form submit way, which you can pretty much get away with just using PHP to do it that way. I prefer the Ajax method because it's asynchronous and it creates a much fancier admin experience. I'm going to keep throwing that term around just to make my talk sound more official and needed. Yeah, so it's a bit complicated to code in WordPress, the Ajax, because you have to use the API that they have built in for admin Ajax and using that, and we'll kind of go over that in a second. So that's a couple of downsides here. Is it a bit complicated? And if you do too much of that, it will, obviously depending on how many users you have on your site and how much of it you're doing, it will tax the CPU of your server. Now, I will say if you're on cool hosting that has SSDs and whatnot, like all SSD, not just for the database, but all SSD, I've found that pretty much eliminates that problem. But if you're forced to use Bluehost or something like that, then you may want to be careful how much of that you're doing. Definitely makes for a better experience, makes it feel a lot more modern on the admin experience side of things. And it can speed up the workflow of manipulating the data. And I know I'm talking in very broad terminology, so it may be somewhat difficult for you to understand exactly how that feels or how it applies. But just think of batch data manipulation. For instance, okay, so in the case of that first example I showed you with the high school t-shirt design website, I needed a really fast way for us to be able to add a bunch of different designs all at once because we updated our designs on a yearly basis, so the designs would say the year that it actually is, not 2013 or something on the template. So the designers actually go through and update the templates once a year to kind of show the current year, therefore requires an update of the images. So I thought it'd be really nice to create a PHP script and a way to trigger that script from the back end where we can just FTP upload all of the images into a certain folder, and then I can I can look at all the folders in a drop-down, pick which folder I wanted to update the images for, and then just click update, and then the script just finds all the new ones and creates custom post types for them automatically, and then also updates the images that are already attached to the previously created custom post types. Hopefully I didn't lose any of you with that. But yeah, I mean, it made adding of custom post types that had to do with designs and the images related, the images attached to them, like gajillion times faster. So form submit post data to the same page. Basically, that's what happens whenever you save data on any options page that's already in WordPress. It just sends a post HTTP request to the same page you're already on, and then there's logic, PHP logic built into that page that is prepared to find and catch that and do something different if it does catch that. So that's basically how that works. So anytime you just go to the options page, it doesn't trigger that if-then statement, and then if it sees that there's certain data posted in the HTTP request, that it says, oh, okay, well, now we're saving data, so now I'm going to save all this data into the table, and that's how that works. It's great for larger pages of input. So if you have like a form of input that's like 20 or 30 fields, I would probably do that with the form submit method as opposed to the AJAX method, because it's just a ton of data and you don't want them sitting there staring at a spinning wheel for, I don't know, who knows how long, depending on the page. All right, so the WPDB API. When I found this, that is literally what I felt like when I found these functions and I saw that I could directly manipulate tables in MySQL, custom tables, any way that I wanted. Literally the most powerful way to manipulate data in WordPress. Again, I know we're getting kind of far off into like development land here, but to bring it back to how it affects the admin, the more complicated the scripts that you build for certain things, for more complicated things that need to be done, the easier it's going to make the life of the admin. You don't want them having to fiddle around and click a whole bunch of different buttons and do a whole bunch of different things to manipulate very specific, very custom data on their website. So if you know how to do this type of stuff, you can actually build scripts into your plugin that eliminate a lot of that and basically just automate a ton of stuff. And that's obviously, the more you automate things, the better the experience is going to be for the admin, because that's the less work they have to do. And then they click one button and all of a sudden it does a whole bunch of stuff and you're like, wow, that's easy. I like that. So most of the times what I'm doing when I deal with this is I'm building an AJAX function, and then the PHP callback side of that is essentially doing a whole bunch of this stuff. Inserting rows, getting rows, get results, updating rows, sometimes in custom tables, but it doesn't always have to be custom tables. I mean, WordPress has a lot of cool functions built into it, but it would be impossible for them to kind of predict every use case scenario. And so there are some situations where you want to manipulate data that's already in an existing table in a way that's like, crazier and, I don't know, more meticulous, more processes, I guess, sequential data manipulation, if that's a real thing. So that's when this comes in really, really handy. It's honestly not that hard to do this. Now, if you don't know how to write SQL statements, this can be somewhat challenging, but I would encourage you to just learn it real quick, because in my opinion, learning SQL statements is not that hard. It's actually pretty simple. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do, but in most cases, I mean, if you're just trying to find columns of data and get it back and fetch it and make an object out of it and do whatever you want from there, I mean, it's really not that hard. You can see a couple of examples and figure it out and be like, oh, I get it. Select ID, that's the name of the column. Oh yeah, and post title too, that's the other column. Let's get both those columns. And then, whatever, go from there. Any questions on that part? I know that's getting kind of crazy, so I just want to pause right there. Is anybody thoroughly lost? Don't be afraid to admit it. Are you thoroughly lost? what you're looking at right here is going to be going in the PHP side of things, right? Right. Yep. And so that's a really good question. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying, like you can do this right here without using the Ajax method. You can do a post thing and put all this in the same menu page and catch the data being posted and still do what you're looking at right here. But me personally, I usually end up doing it the other way, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I've also got some free code goodies for you guys. So don't think you're walking away from this with nothing. I'll show you that in a second. All right, so any questions at all over anything I just talked about? How many of you are like thoroughly bored and are like, yeah, I've known all this stuff for like 5 years? Nobody? Good. You guys are just being nice to me. You just don't want to hurt my feelings. You want to know more about the Ajax stuff? Most people do. It is fun. We'll get into that, don't worry. Anything else besides that? Go ahead.
What about changing the admin from WP-admin to something else so it's harder to get into that?
Okay, so for security purposes, obviously. Do you have that mic turned up for the questions? Turn that up for me, would you? So anyway, to reiterate what he asked so that the people watching this video later know what's going on, how do we change the URL or permalink is actually what he's asking for WP admin so that bots can't just scan your website and find the WP admin and then start attacking your login and try to break their way in. I've never coded a custom thing to do that, mostly because there's like 10 or 20 or 50 different plugins that already exist that do that for you on the plugin repository. So most times I just use one of those plugins. That's the great thing about WordPress is for things like that we can cheat and just use somebody else's code. So that's how I normally do it. What plugin have I used to do that? I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. But I would be more than happy tomorrow to like fish through some and kind of maybe I'll remember which ones I've used off the repository. But yeah, I would totally just use something already existing to do that. I wouldn't code it from scratch. Yes? So what do you mean by interface? Plugins or the theme or any of the above? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll show you that in a second because I was already planning on doing that. Are there any other questions before we get into that? Because I don't want to just start diving into code and then lose people and get bored before they have questions to ask. Are there any other questions over anything that I've discussed at all? Don't be shy. You guys are like, just code already, dude. All right, I suppose we could try and do that. Here's a bunch of information about myself. I'll put this up again later. Oh, more importantly, if I were you guys, I would take your phone out and just snap a picture of this because it has the URL of where to get this slide presentation because it's on Google Slides, so you guys can just go look at this later if you want. So there's a link to it on this GitHub page, and then all of the code I'm about to show you guys is also on this GitHub page. So yeah, keep that, and obviously I spammed this thing with a bunch of information about myself so that I can shamelessly promote and hopefully make more money in the future. Cool, everybody got that? Sweet. All right, so let's get into some of this. Don't mind my background. That's my daughter trying to be cute. And so I haven't removed it because I love her, and so I'll just leave it there forever probably. So let's go to this GitHub page here. And I will end up opening Sublime Text here so that we can actually do some coding on the fly. I need somebody to help me keep track of time, because once I start doing this type of stuff, I'll lose track of it. We're only at 10:35, so we probably got another 10 or 15 minutes of code time. Somebody keeps track of time for me and throw a pen at me or something when I go over that. So just show you what this repository looks like. So again, the link for this slideshow is right here, so you can go look at it later if you want. All right, so I'm going to briefly go over the custom post type template that I have here. Again, this is all available for you guys to download. This is my go-to template. Anytime I need to create a custom post type, it literally takes me less than a minute to create one with this template. So if you don't take advantage of this, well, you are probably a better coder than me. Okay, so I'm going to go update this later because I created all these variables thinking it would be faster to change the custom post type name later, and then I tested it later and found out that doesn't work. So if you get to this before I do that, which I would be surprised if you do, you're just going to have to do a find and replace for all of these variables and change them with just a string. So basically, you got, this thing is super long. This is like my deluxe version of it, and it does a whole bunch of crazy stuff. There's a comment in here, right here, that says, hey, for simple custom post types, just remove everything below here. If you just need to add something quick and easy, just remove all that other stuff. And in the case that it's not a simple custom post type, then there's other goodies down there for you to use, like how to add custom fields to the listing part of the admin and whatnot. There's a whole bunch of good stuff in there. You'll find it later. It'll be like a treasure hunt or something for you. I don't know. Can I? Control scroll. There you go. Good idea. Thank you very much for saying that. Okay, so how many people have never coded a plugin before from scratch? Seriously? I expected much less hands given the hands we saw earlier. Anyway, so this first part, you put this in a PHP file and upload it into your plugins directory, and then you go and refresh your plugins page on the admin side of things, and you have a new plugin that basically just doesn't do anything, and you can activate it and stuff. That bit of code right there is literally all you need to create a plugin that does nothing. All right, so we're going to skip this part here because I found out that doesn't work. I probably should have tested my code before I put it under this repository. Again, I will update it probably today. So you got this function, create post. Basically, this is just where you add all your variables. It tells WordPress everything it needs to know about its post. So the name of the post, the slug, whatever, all sorts of different stuff. The different terminology it needs to use when you add, remove, whatever. That way it just doesn't tell you, hey, edit post. It'll actually tell you like edit unicorn or whatever. So now that function's all good and fine. That does majority of the work. Well, this is the part that actually does majority of the work because this is the actual args. The top part is the labels. So this is actually just creating the labels array. And so this is what does all the terminology. And then this part actually controls majority of the function, which is this one right here. This is where all the magic happens, this register post type. And then this is actually the reference term that WordPress uses for the custom post type. So if you're adding other stuff to the post type, like categories and stuff, this is actually the term that you're going to use, and it needs to be unique. So don't call it products if you have WooCommerce installed on your existing WordPress. That would be a bad idea. And then an action that just adds that function. So obviously most functions in plugins are initiated by hooks, which is what add action is in this case. And then this part just adds the categories, right? No? Customize post type messages with a filter. Nope, that's something different. Never mind. This part is the categories. Sorry, my code is still a bit sloppy. Only I use it, so I've never really had to refine it that much. You'll figure it out, though. It's not too hard. But yeah, this one adds So this creates a category for your custom post type if your custom post type needs categories. So that's that one. I'm not going to lie, that's probably my most common used tool. It's kind of like my Phillips screwdriver, if you will, in my tool belt. All right, so Ajax, getting to your question. There's two sides of it. You're always going to have your JavaScript file, and you're always going to have your PHP file. Okay? And again, this could almost like merit its own talk entirely. So I'm just going to quickly fly over this because that's not really what this talk is about. But it is very useful when you're creating custom admin side things. So on the PHP side, we have to register the JavaScript that's going to initialize the action or the HTTP request that's going to whatever, do the Ajax. And I use a localized script to basically inject variables into the JavaScript file so that I don't have to hard code the strings in for these things like the nonce and the admin URL, which is the link that you're always, that's the file that it's always going to send an HTTP request to perform the Ajax. And it's basically this file right here. And the admin URL is just a function that automatically fetches its location in WordPress. Again, just trying to fly through this as quick as possible. All right, so this add action, again, is a hook that just triggers that function anytime scripts are added. And then, so this part, this is what's called a dynamic variable in WordPress. So basically what it does is it finds this WP underscore Ajax underscore, and it just knocks that off. Everything after that is the name of your action. And you'll need to remember that when we code the JavaScript post request. And then this is simply a reference to the function that actually performs the magic that you want that request to perform. So here is a quick example of a callback. And basically at the top of every one of your callbacks, you're going to have something that catches all of the data that's being posted in the request. And then this part is simply just to verify the nonce. Why do we use nonces? Again, I'm not going to get into that. Your question? 3 minutes left. Thank you. I'll try to fly through the JavaScript part. If you're not familiar with JavaScript, I'm sorry. Catch me after this and I'll explain it to you in more detail. All right, so once it verifies the nonce and makes sure that this is a legit request, then this any code you put in this comment area is going to execute. Updating the database, getting data, whatever, anything, okay? And then this response is what is going to be sent back in the request, okay? So in the case that you're getting data, you're going to inject that data into this response array, which is then going to be JSON encoded. And then that way, on the JavaScript side of things, you can pick out what you want from that JSON encoded. Essentially, it's going to end up being an object because it's JSON. Does that make sense? Probably not, but nobody wants to ask questions? Okay, cool. Good call, because we're running out of time. All right, last little bit. Okay, so usually your JavaScript file is going to have a lot more stuff in it than this, but this is going to be the part that actually executes the HTTP request from the JavaScript. So most of the times what you're going to have is like a button that does it, right? And then you're going to have, let's put it this way. Always use jQuery, in my opinion, when you're doing this stuff. Like, don't try to do it with just straight JavaScript. It doesn't make any sense. jQuery comes bundled right into WordPress. Just always use jQuery. So in your jQuery code, you're going to put this. In the case that you're not already in a jQuery statement, you use the jQuery thing here. If you are, you just use the $sign. I don't know how many people are familiar with jQuery, but that's how that works. Anyway, this Ajax stuff is a reference to the variable from the injection from the other file, and then the Ajax URL is the part of that object that has the actual URL to the admin.ajax-ajax.php or whatever. So that tells it where to send the request to, so it actually goes to the admin-ajax API. This is the action name. Okay, so this is the name that goes right after that WP underscore Ajax underscore and then the rest of that string. Okay? Again, if you have more questions about this, don't be afraid to hunt me down after this because I love talking about nerdy code. And then the nonce, same thing. So you see the Ajax stuff is just a reference to that object. Same thing as up here. After the dot, that's just a reference to the different key. So that's the Ajax URL and this is the nonce. And then your data. Whatever data you're trying to send to the request. Package it up into a JSON object. If you don't know how JSON objects work, you're going to need to know that. So read up on that because that's necessary. And then everything that happens in this function response here part, that's any data that you get back from the Ajax requests, you're going to put in that part there and use jQuery to put it all over the place. Put it wherever you want. Do whatever you want with it, essentially. Again, this is very vague. We're not using like a certain example or anything. We don't have time to show an example because my time just ran out. But again, if you want to see this in more detail later on, I'll be more than happy to show you. We're not actually going to code anything because we're out of time. Any very last questions because we have literally 14 minutes until the next talk. One more. Anybody? Go ahead. I can if you want. Sure, because I have to update this repository anyway because of that stuff in the custom post type. So yes, I will add some JavaScript comments in this Ajax post and in the other one too to kind of flush it out for you a little bit. All right. Well, thanks a lot for listening to me jabber for a while. And find me if you have any other questions. You guys are all awesome, and I'm very proud of the fact that this room is a lot more full than that one. It makes me feel special. Thank you.